Is this thing on? Hey, this week we have loads to talk about. We're talking about 3D printing. We have Kickstarters. We have the works. And if you subscribe, smash the like button and share this with some of your buddies out there, you'll be in with a chance of winning the Promethean Complex set from War Cradle Studios. Yep, it's that time. Our weekend starts now.
Happy 2022! Who would have thought we'd have made it this far, huh? Our first
Is this the first one of this year?
First one of the year. We're all back.
Happy 2022!
All the twos. And we've got Warren's back. Somebody's managed to fetch him internet. They've installed an internet pump directly to his house, where he's children on hamster wheels.
If you like the idea of it being 2022 right now, don't forget that Tuesday is coming up in February, which is on Tuesday. It will be the 22nd of February, so the second month in 2022.
That's like all the twos. It's like all the twos.
I imagine there's something amazing is going to happen at 2:00 then.
Oh yeah, something will break.
At 2:22, the world will explode. So.
Well, apparently now, okay. So Andrea has this thing on her Facebook that I don't seem to have, right? And it's the bad news in the morning feed. Okay. Oh, right, so every morning without fail, she'll sit and tell me about awful news.
Is she subscribed to the BBC?
Oh, God. And I keep saying to her, oh, please don't. I hate this. I hate this. She said, well, it's interesting. Interesting to you because you got that kind of like murdery goth thing going on. Anyway, she was telling me about a psychic lady.
Right.
She's probably dead, and that's how she ended up in the news feed, okay? But anyway, a psychic lady, and the lady's predictions have been coming true. Apparently, she predicted pandemics and stuff like that there, which is great because, remember, the World Health Organization wasn't able to do that, but Bill Gates did, apparently. Anyway, I digress. Let me get back. She says, this is the psychic lady, we're going to meet aliens this year.
Maybe that'll happen.
I am so ready for that. Because I tell you what, guys, I am so over normal life now. I'm ready for the aliens. I've been through enough now. I am ready for the aliens. Bring them on, and whatever happens, but I'm ready for it. I'm all charged up and ready for the aliens. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely up for that. Just could do with something to mix up this year, couldn't we? I feel like I've been inside for too long.
Life has been so quiet now for many years, so it's like... So, yeah.
Speaking of things happening on the 22nd of the month, and also something new and unusual, myself and Warren are going to be throwing out Rorke's Drift for a live stream.
Oh, yeah.
What? On the anniversary of Rorke's Drift, who would have seen that coming? Certainly
the odds.
Well, it all depends whether or not I can find where I've put everything.
We're going to come to your screens like a spear from the hands of an unmarried Zulu. So it'll be slightly less accurate than a married Zulu.
That's the ones.
Yeah.
So if you may be aware that I made a game some time ago using the Men Who Would Be Kings. And it plays out on an 8-foot by 6-foot table because that apparently is the only size good enough to play Rorke's Drift in 28mm.
Yes.
If you're going to do something, do it to extreme. That's what I learned from Too Much Coffee Man. So if you fancy seeing how badly we can butcher history, why not stop by next Saturday?
And all the quotes as well.
No, it will just be nothing but bad impersonations and Zulu quotes. Don't worry about that.
I will be sure to swat up on the official history of it. Like I'm already somewhat of an expert in the Rorke's Drift siege, I'll swat up a little bit just to make sure that all of our viewers get the complete historical accuracy they have come to know and love.
It's why people keep tuning back in.
Yeah.
Yes, mate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
We may or may not have a bit of cannon fodder with us. We may have Shay.
That'd be good.
Our child
Nice.
to pick up and carry the heavy things and move them.
I haven't got a chance to stomp over Shay on the tabletop yet, so this will be good.
That will be good. And the game will last as long as it takes us to get through it. So who knows how long that will be.
For anybody that is going to tune in, like if Shay joins us, this is going to be interesting because Shay is a mean player. Like Shay and Justin are like our alpha strikers. Like they are into the meta. Me, I'm into the horns of the bull. So
you're playing the Zulus then?
Oh God, yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Anytime I do Rorke's Drift, I have to play as the Zulus because, I believe in a past life, I may have been a Zulu.
Makes sense.
Could well be.
I may have been Michael Caine as well, but I'm pretty sure I was a Zulu. So, and I know all of their tactics, Jerry. I know all of their tactics. The balls of the horn, the flappy charge, all of that kind of stuff.
I've got historically accurate.
Yes,
I can't wait
I've got all of that.
Charge.
Well, I will be bringing my gourd. It's magnificent, and I will make sure and display it on the day.
Good. I'll see if I can polish my pet helmet and bring it with me.
There we go. And I will slap you over the helmet with my gourd. So this is going to be amazing.
I imagine so.
Not even going to get to Walk Drift, are we?
Oh yeah. We'll get there. It'll be all. Rorke's will be the backdrop to our gourding and helmeting. So. That aside, if you fancy joining us, we'll be live on, I'm going to say Twitch, probably the YouTubes as well. Saturday the 22nd.
Nice.
We haven't actually decided on a time, really, have we? What works for you?
But sometime before bedtime. So sometime early in the afternoon.
There'll be a post about it next week on the site.
Yes, we will keep you posted.
So,
yes.
Okay.
And it takes place on Saturday, Jerry, so we could tell them in the Weekender next week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We can do that. That gives us time to work it out and gives me time to find where I've put everything.
Mm-hmm. Also, if I may add, while we're giving people a heads up, the Warzone radio show returns on the 27th of this month. So the Warzone radio show for the next little while is going to be the last Thursday of the month in our Discord, where we get good tunes, good chats, and lots of crack. So, boom.
Sweet to the beat. Shall we get stuck in with the show then?
Yes.
And we kick off, as always, with the most important thing.
Can I do it?
Week. Go
Can
for
I do it? Yeah. It's time. I've been waiting for this. It's time for...
It's very different from the ASMR version, but
I'm excited about Indie of the Week. I love indies, man. It's like people ask, and I'm going to clear this up. What makes an indie? Well, it's just whatever we decide. Simple as.
That's good. I like that.
Who have we got this week?
Well, this week I thought I would tickle all of your little nodules of goodness with the Rebel minis.
Oh, Rebel minis. Cool.
Rebel minis are mostly 15 mil, which obviously is a scale that you adore. But they also do a host of genres within there. So you've got pulp, you've got fantasy, you've got sci-fi, gothic, anything you want to do really, you can do it with Rebel. Currently not sending things to the UK because the UK has changed their VAT rules after the EU. But once they get that fixed, they'll be back good to go on that. So this is one to bookmark if you happen to be in the UK. Yes. If you're in the rest of the world, America, Australia, or Europe, then you're probably good to go already. But they do a host of stuff. They do a host of miniatures. They also do a host of rule sets for all the miniatures. So if you have a game and you're looking for miniatures, great. If you look at the miniatures and go, this would be spectacular, I wish there was a game for it, there is.
We'll have a
look at the rule sets at the end, but the rule sets are many and varied.
Nice.
But I thought I'd start off with the bigger stuff. They do have a few 28mm ranges for people who are fans of Doogie Howser MD, for example.
Yes, from Battlestar Starship Trooper Galactica.
Yes. There is a range of the Earth Force. So there's an Earth Force Marshal and some Earth Force Infantry.
Man!
Who may or may not be trying to protect. Was it Clandathu? I want to say was the planet.
Clandathu, I think it was. Yeah,
that was. But remember, they went back to P.
Yes. That is true.
Poem.
That is very true. This is an interesting little sci-fi range. If you've read the book Starship Troopers, which I know a lot of people haven't, but I think there was also a cartoon. There are bits and pieces in here that are from
outside of the movie,
rather than the movie. So, for example, I think these were called. I want to say they were called gorillas. They may have been called apes, but. The Kodiak class battle suits.
Those are very cool.
I mean, if you're looking for a set of powered armor for your Marines when you're having to deal damage against some sort of giant space bug, you can probably not do a lot better than that, especially those knee pads. I mean, anybody who gets kneed by that isn't walking away anytime soon.
And were they in the book, Jerry? I must sit down and read the book, actually. Apparently the book's very good, and it's not like the movie at all.
No, the movie was very much
a parody.
RoboCop. Yeah, it was a parody of what they were after, whereas the book was more a damning condemnation of what was coming. But yeah, they are interesting figures, to say the least.
Do they do the bugs?
They do a bug. They do a range of space insects, one of which is bug-like in quality. Let's go back to here. So,
spider bug.
Kill some of these off, actually.
Okay. I think I saw my bug of choice there. Space scorpion.
Space mantis.
Oh, yes.
I'll open all of those, and then I'll go to the bottom where the Screecher lives, because I know that's the one you're really after.
There it is.
Oh.
Remember, aim for the brainstem.
Yes.
If you take out a limb, they're still 80% combat effective. Thank you, Doogie Howser, MD.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
But even
have you ever watched Starship Troopers 2, Jerry?
No, I think it goes up to like 5.
Don't.
There's loads of them.
There's an animated film and everything.
Yeah.
I remember the animated TV series coming in, and it was different.
Yeah.
Although closer to the books. So you did have things like the powered suits in it.
You see, what I like, right? What I like about my sci-fi is I like my sci-fi to be to have a sense of realism to it. You know, I'll be honest. 40K has kind of jumped outside of that for me now a little bit. So I find myself probably a bit more drawn to Aliens, where you have vulnerable space marines taking on a deadly mindless threat.
Yes.
It's and I suppose that's maybe just a simple guy in me. I like the black and white of the good versus evil kind of thing. It's easy to identify with, and you just get that sense of adventure, that sense of heroics. And maybe I am just demonstrating how shallow I am as a human being in many respects with that, but there is something very appealing to me. I like to feel that my protagonists are vulnerable, truly vulnerable.
I agree with you. Whenever it comes to sci-fi, anything sci-fi in particular, I like biological threats as opposed to pew, pew, pew. There's nothing wrong with pew, pew, pew. Everybody loves pew, pew, pew. But I like the likes of aliens. I like the likes of something believable in which we can, rather than someone who looks quite human, but alien features with a gun. I prefer something quite threatening, out of reach, but biological that we can scientifically use.
And to back this up, A little bit, actually. I have something interesting. I've watched the first part of the Eternals, okay? And it's doing absolutely nothing for me because they basically are invulnerable. You know, it's and it's like in my superheroes, okay? My superheroes of choice, well, my number one is always Batman. Regardless of how well Marvel does or how weird DC gets, it's always Batman because Batman has a vulnerability, you know, that Super or whatever never has.
He's just a man.
Yeah, and it's so perhaps it could be one of two things. It could be their vulnerability. What I think it's more likely is I feel I could be them. More likely. Do you know what I mean?
With enough money, yes.
I could put myself in the shoes of a Starship Trooper. Yeah. Running around doing his best, trying not to blow his buddy's head off, or I could put myself in the shoes of a Batman because there's no superpowers there. It's just gritty, get the stuff done. And I think perhaps I can relate more, and I can put myself into the moment more. So I would like to see more approaches from games and things like that in this direction of understanding that there are a group of us out there who love to identify closely with the vulnerability of the protagonist. We want to feel that we can be that.
You need more humanity, less.
Escapism doesn't necessarily mean that I'm embraced with superpowers and stuff like that. Because I'll be honest, if I had a superpower, I'd be like Carl Pilkington. I would be bullshit man. If I got a bullshit detector, I think that'd be the best superpower I could ever get. So I'm totally on board with that. I don't need anything else. It's like nothing else would really do me. If I could fly, I never would because I don't like flying. So
people would just throw things at you if you could fly. Yeah. That is humanity. If somebody starts flying past. Speaking of gritty, though, there's also a range of 28mm, I suppose, horror.
Is that almost Pyramid Head but with a chainsaw?
Well, he's wearing a deep sea diving helmet.
Oh, yes, I'm not almost Pyramid Head.
Ooh.
So, I mean, why wouldn't you?
No.
It's a good way to. It's a good look. I'm sure it weighs a ton, but he seems to be.
He's got muscles on his muscles, Jerry. Yeah. So yeah,
almost like the Innsmouth Chainsaw Massacre, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Mix together a little bit of Cthulhu there as well.
I quite like these because there's a weird mix of weird and post-apocalyptic. So you've got things like the Street Gladiator.
Oh, that's cool.
Very much a myrmidon, but then he's got his
bin lid
and a circular saw blade screwed into a bit of a baseball bat.
That's bad.
Are you sure that's not a well steroided dairy mother? Dairy many chances.
The only reason the peace process came in, wheelie bins stopped banging the lids on the ground. And a silent scientist. I mean,
yes,
he's a good look, and again, great for games like Don't Look Back or that sort of
7TV, anything like
7TV,
that.
Yeah. So there's a nice selection of horrific horror in 28mm. Quite a lot of them, actually, including
Bill the Angry
and
Clown
Wild Dogs.
looks fascinating.
Yeah,
Bill the Angry Clown. Okay.
Wow!
It reminds me of the front of, was it Carmageddon?
Oh God, yeah.
He's rocking my physique these days. I might call that the COVID body.
I was just thinking there, Jerry. Right, he is literally standing with a bottle of Jack Daniels. And a costume that I have hanging up in my wardrobe. This is Andrea's fantasy on a Friday night, man. As soon as this show's over, I will be pouring myself into that outfit and getting my JD and you're standing at the foot of the bed. The only thing I need is what is that? The baseball bat.
The baseball
Mine's not
bat.
as big as that.
Okay.
So it's but I'll be there. And I'll be going, hey, you're a lucky lady.
There you go. New love for clowns. Andrew will find that day.
She married one.
A lot of people who are frightened of clowns, that will probably help placate them somewhat. The idea of you in that outfit, dressed like a clown.
Absolutely.
I imagine that's aversion therapy right there.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I'm here to help.
Yeah. Reach out. Yeah.
Before we disappear away from the 28mm and into the 15s, there is one final section, which is the Darkhold Fantasy. And this I like because it was built, it says at the top here. They were attempting to fill a gap in RPGs and tabletop games, which is namely goblin characters and adventurers. So yes, you can play as a mighty goblin adventuring party with your wizard, witch, fighter, and rogue.
Awesome. I love that.
But in a goblin fashion. I particularly like the fact that the wizard has a even smaller goblin as an apprentice with him. You know, he looks happy to be there.
He does.
God bless him.
I channel my magical power into you. And if you explode, that's fine.
Is that a goblin riding a pig?
Yes,
there is goblin pig
jousting on a pig.
There's things like the Darkhold Jester.
Oh, that's cool.
Looking particularly fond of himself.
Yeah. He's good. We got the goblin villagers.
Oh.
Yep. This one at the end, exploring for news.
Checking out the nasal passage.
I quite like this sort of stuff because it sort of puts a spin on the traditional. Everyone loves the idea of playing as paladins and druids and elves and dwarves and all that kind of thing. But I've always liked the thing that you see with Darkhold, and you also see it with the Otherworld miniatures stuff as well, where they put together this idea of, well, you don't necessarily just have to play as those valiant heroes. You could play as the heroes and villains within goblins and kobolds and all that kind of thing as well. And you could just do an entire game themed around that, which I think would bring a lot more fun to the hobby element of the game, as well as just the playing as well. Because you get you get to paint something that isn't just your traditional paladin in full plate armor and stuff. So
I have an idea.
Go on.
Right. So, a Rangers of Shadow Deep kind of game. So, tabletop RPG, very much the measure and move and do your thing, right? So, very narrative driven, right? Mm-hmm. All the characters are goblins. So, it's all totally goblin based. When your goblin dies, you have a sound effect that goes pop. I need to get the right pop, The goblins always go pop. Mm-hmm. And when they go pop, I'm going to steal something from Moonstone here, Jerry, right? You drop some you drop some D4s or some dice, and then from that, you determine which of his little mushroomy spores grows into your next goblin and what he is.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
And then you just, because just looking at this, it took me back to the Amiga days, and it was like, I just was thinking, God, there could have been a game back then. But if you had a game back then, your goblin definitely would have went pop. And bits would have went all over the place. And then maybe some of those bits would have grew into other goblins and stuff like that there. And I just think we could transfer that to the tabletop. And, it's like goblins go pop. That's how it is.
It makes sense. I used to play a game from Steve Jackson Games. I had to look behind me to see the rules.
Which Steve Jackson? American Steve Jackson. And there was an RPG called Goblins where it was like that. The entire world was goblins. It was set in like a steampunk Victoriana. Everybody was a goblin. Goblins were practically unkillable. So the first thing that would happen is you would generate your goblin and see what happened to them during the first years of their life. Mm-hmm. So, if you spent a year trapped in a bread bin, you were very short but very fat. Things like that. But it's very quick, people stopped looking for ways to kill. It doesn't lend itself as a fighty game because goblins are practically invincible. If you bounce them, freeze them, whatever, they'll still come back goblin-y. And just doing whole worlds like that where you just go, you know what, maybe the elves crop up as bad guys and monsters.
Yeah,
otherwise you just have.
Do you know what? That's really interesting. I kind of like the idea where you just remove killing from the equation completely, because then you start. You're sitting down to a game and you're going, right? There's no killing in it. Mm-hmm. What do you do? What is there left to do? And I'm sure there are a billion things that you could discover some fun in. I'm gonna spend some time thinking about that. I think that could be a great challenge for XLBS, Jerry. I think that could be a house challenge on XLBS. Not a game, but coming up with ideas. Get each of the houses to come up with ideas for a game where killing is effectively defunct. So what would you explore? What would you do? So come over, join us on Sunday in XLBS. Make sure whenever you join the Discord, join one of the houses. And maybe we'll get that set up as a wee house challenge just to get everybody warmed up for 2022.
That sounds good.
Definitely a way to go.
Noted. Pacifist route, guys.
Yeah, I need to take a note of that or I'll forget.
Trading.
And we'll come to Sunday and I'll blaze on through it and then I'll not set it. But
here's why we're really here. And it's the 15 mil stuff, which is many and varied. They have a whole page for Mighty Armies, their own 15 mil system, where they've sort of collected stuff together into army form for the game. But if we go beyond the army side of things and just start exploring what they have in the way of 15 mil, you can see down the side here. Not much in the way of 10 mil stuff there, but there is 15 mil sci-fi, 15 mil zombie hunters, werewolves, modern military, gangs, gunmen, hostages, pulp adventures, pirates, ancients.
World War II snipers.
World War II snipers is just some German and Russian snipers for playing Stalingrad-esque sniper drills. However, I will say trying to find 15 mil German snipers for Flames of War has been in the backside. So it's very nice to see that I can just get them from there. Quite nice sculpts. Not that I've been in here already. However,
could you go into the modern military for me, please, Jerry?
I will do. You're keen on this, having done your.
I'm very much into my moderns.
You're a bunch of Coke cans and some mirrored shades away from being a African tin pot dictator.
Yep.
All the berets on. I like the guy at the front smoking a big stoogie.
Yeah.
You've got all the weapon options in there as well, which is pretty neat. So you've got the RPGs and all that kind of stuff. It's very nice.
So we've got Chinese, Africans, modern US infantry. Go to that 15 mil SAS assault group. That will be interesting. I wonder, are they jungle themed?
No,
they're
not.
Cool.
They're coming at you like Cleopatra and
up for like urban
and with the gas mask on as well for chemical biological warfare.
Very nice.
Those are cool.
Yeah, very cool.
It'll be controversial, but I've got to say it. That's Northern Ireland pattern.
Yeah.
that is what that is. So I had no point in steering away from it because that's what that is. So, yes, I know, controversial, but
it's not controversial. Controversial would be saying SAS stands for sadists and psychopaths. But we wouldn't say that.
So do you know what? But let's be honest. I think even those in the SAS would recognize that there's an element of truth to that.
There's even Riot Police.
Nice.
In case you want to, again, take the streets of Belfast with the
This is it. We have everything we need now. So
let's have a quick look and see what's going on up the Ordoyne Road.
Oh, street punks.
I'm not seeing a huge amount of petrol bombs there.
No.
So
letting themselves down a bit.
Do they have a rule set for the 15 mil moderns? Because I was just going to say that it would be also good for like playing around with Spectre in a different way as well. That'd be pretty cool.
Great idea.
I mean, you can drop down obviously to 15 from any rule set you have.
Yeah.
Here are the rule books they do. So where are we? No quarter. I want modern and horror. That's what we're after, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, they don't just do 8. Don't worry. That's just the subcategories. And then those are the modern and horror.
Very
the fantasy
nice.
one's particularly big. I'll open up some of the gangs and gunmen as well, because there's more in there. Your likes of your
15 mil Men in Black as well. That's cool.
Fire Brigade. So you can replay Backdraft if you want.
Play Backdraft, yeah. Oh, this is a great indie, Jerry. This is absolutely brilliant.
There's a really cool fireman board game that I think would be really fun to take the meeples out and put those 15 mil guys in instead.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
More post-apocalyptic. Somebody for that gladiator to lead or join.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's 28 mil, so he could be a giant. Some sort of mutant giant.
Well, the guy with the axe, he definitely made good friends with the guy with the axe in the back. The gladiator, 100%.
Well, if we look into pulp adventurers, there's a few in here you may recognize from places. There's a British call box.
Dr. Wen, that guy.
Some sort of
Dr. Wen.
Yeah.
Dr. Wen. Dr. Howe.
Dr. Howe.
But again, pulp heroes, villains, and gangsters. So you've got things like the Shadow, Dick Tracy, Biggles, and
nice.
I think that's Pruneface on the end as well.
Here's the dude with the purple
back of his head. I don't know who he's supposed to be.
Right, he's a true hero.
Or a villain.
Much respect.
I imagine he's some kind of 60s, 70s villain from something that someone will probably pick up in the comments and be like, I can't believe you didn't know that. So
Let's have a quick look at the 15 mil Monkey Boys.
They're fab.
They're a bunch of Bigfoot.
They are.
Now, hang on a second here. That first one. What's going on there?
It's an extra muscle.
He's either got a 7-pack or he forgot his loincloth today.
Yeah,
one or the other.
So I was explaining to Manny, right, that so many people confuse Bigfoot for Sasquatch, yet he doesn't mind.
Hey! There's some Victorian sci-fi steampunk guys off to Mars with their gas masks and pith helmets on.
That's really cool.
Very nice. So that's just the pulp. The sci-fi, there's pirates. We'll have a quick look at pirates, I suppose.
Yes.
Because they're always good for laugh.
For sure.
Has our piratey adventure went out yet?
No, not yet.
No.
Soon you get to watch us in Pirate Land.
There's an interesting set of adventures. One's got a monkey.
As you do.
One's got
a mermaid.
And a mermaid.
Historically accurate.
Yeah.
Right up our Strasse.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. Smell over.
Those are great. I love those.
I like those ones, yeah.
So much detail worked into those as well.
Yeah, I mean, the range they do, pretty much for every range, is absolutely fantastic.
Oh.
Red Anne. Is that Anne Bonny they're talking about there, or?
Could be. Very far
That's
away.
nice.
Oh, yeah, that would do for Anne Bonny.
Yep.
Yeah. They're all female pirates.
All
They
female
are
pirates
great.
for that little pack.
Mm-hmm.
So even though there's not a huge amount of them, there's still
Skelly.
plenty to be going on with, including Skelly Bobs.
I want to know how they're...
His head underneath his...
Yes, in the centre. Head under the arm.
How
Lose it.
do they grow their beards? That's what I want to know.
Well, hair. It's one of the last things to. It's one of the last things to rot. Apparently, deeply embedded in the bone as it is.
May even continue growing after you die.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Along with the nails. Along with the nails. But like
that and CA glue. I have it on good authority that skeleton pirates have an endless supply of CA glue. So.
Of course. Yeah.
But like I was saying, there's a whole host more that we haven't even got into yet, and then there's all the rule sets. So if you're looking at things and you're going, "Oh, that'd be good," but I don't have a game to play it with, then they have you covered pretty much. I mean, there's the pulp stuff. So you can play against Captain Nemo. You can do your dinosaur adventures. You can play your pulp.
This is incredible.
It's awesome.
It covers all the bases. It's a proper, as I like to think of it, old school company where they go, we've got an idea for 15 mil and we're going to cover it all. And people go, what game are they going to use it for? I go, don't worry, we're going to cover that as well.
Yeah.
Got you.
So if you're
Heroes.
interested,
absolute heroes. And that is what Indie of the Week is all about. Right. Will we get some news on the go?
let's.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
All right, kicking things off in the news, we are going back back into the mists of time, like The Rock or Brendan Fraser, because we're going to be taking a look at some upcoming miniatures for the First Empire range from Wargames Atlantic. In this case, they've previously done Persians, who are a First Empire, but not as old as this empire. And in this case, Wargames Atlantic are getting to work on some New Kingdom Egyptians.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Not the Old Kingdom, you understand, or the Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom.
I love me a Klopesh.
Right, hang on a second, though.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Just need to get my bearings here. Old Kingdom chased the Israelites. No, yes.
Yes. About that neck of the woods. New Kingdom is about 3,500 years ago. Ish, give or take. They were the ones who came up against the Hittites.
Oh, okay.
Ramses II.
Okay, yeah.
And the Sea Peoples.
Right. So this is the collapse of the Egyptian Empire. Then is around this point. Yeah. This is the end.
Phoenicians and things.
Yeah.
But this is before Cleopatra, though. Yeah.
Oh yeah, much.
Yeah. She's
that's
later
the Roman era.
Cleopatra's in with that nice Caesar fella.
Yeah.
So we've seen
Mark Antony too.
Oh yeah. Well, anything that will keep your country from being conquered.
Yeah.
These are early renders, so things may change. I've seen some people complaining about the size of the loincloths. I have no problem with those loincloths.
They're a bit thick.
Apparently, they're also very, very. They're too muscly for some people. Yeah. Apparently, but
the loincloths have a gourd kind of a thing going there. It's like, are they storage compartments as well?
I think that's more just for the undercuts when they're tooling more than anything else. Is the reason for the depth there. However, size-wise, from top to bottom, that's about right, based on images I've seen in various things. But
you were there, Jerry.
Yeah, well, I was.
You were there 3,000 years ago.
Very much so. Certainly, I feel like it when the weather changes anyway. But they are planning 2 boxes. So they're planning on doing a box that's archer-based and a box that will contain hand weapons and spears and sort of pole arms. So you'll be able to do your infantry or your, I suppose, ranged as well.
And they still would have rocked out chariots back then too.
Oh yes. They? Oh God, yeah. Looking very, I was going to say, looking very Trojan. They would have come up against the Trojans. It's the same time period for the Trojans, so quite nice chariot armor.
That's a very Egyptian face right there, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
What was quite nice about what people had said in the comments of this is it's really fun that you can look at these models and immediately think, well, I know what that's going to look like when it's painted. You're going to have that sort of like cream white, the blues, the golds, the bronze, everything.
Yeah.
It's such an iconic look for the Egyptians.
Big cowhide shields. I think it's great. Egyptians being a very sort of horde army as well. If you were looking to do them at the moment, you're investing heavily in metal.
A lot of metal
figures. So being able to lay your hands on a nice selection of plastics should hopefully help people put them on the table, because sometimes I get the feeling armies are built based on what people have access to, and therefore some interesting armies and forces get skipped because it's too much of a pain for some people to collect them, or too pricey for them to be collected.
Egyptians freak me out, Jerry.
Is it the unusual headdresses?
It's not. Do you know what it is, right? If I'm not mistaken, these guys were fighting, and the Great Pyramid had been standing for 1,000 years by that point.
Probably wouldn't be far off it.
It's something like that. Like, is the Great Pyramid not 4,000 years or something ago?
It's easily over 4,000 years. Cleopatra's closer to us than she is to the Great Pyramid.
Yeah. I know, isn't that nuts though?
It's mind blowing, yeah.
No, it's like it's hard actually as Europeans to think of civilizations lasting that length of time, because our civilization really only kicked off after the Dark Ages, when the Vikings and all had finished doing what they were doing, and then ultimately it was the Vikings that it was Rollo that ended up civilizing most of Europe in his uncivilized way. But anyway, it's like we're thinking of civilizations. We're thinking of a few hundred years, or something like that. There, I find it really difficult to process a civilization that hasn't changed as rapidly as our civilization.
Mm-hmm.
So those dudes are pretty much the same as what they were 3,000 years before. Or at least 1,000 years before, or whatever.
Yeah, there's not a massive change in. I suppose
it's mad, isn't it?
Construction and tooling and that sort of thing. You move from stone to bronze to iron, but a lot of the way the civilization is constructed around it remains sort of fairly stagnant. Yeah. Although obviously Newgrange in Ireland older than the pyramids. Screw you, pyramids.
The thing that always gets me as well is that a lot of people consider it to be sort of like the Greeks that were the enlightened peoples of the ancient world, but the Egyptians, for the most part, were equally as enlightened. They were amazing with medicine and building and all sorts of different things. Admittedly, they had some help when it came to building from lots and lots of slaves, but there we go.
I thought you were going to say aliens there.
Or aliens.
Well, we don't know if it was slaves. So, apparently they got paid.
Well looked after. Yeah,
it was like they were craftsmen. They were masons. They ended up creating the Illuminati further down the line, and it went back even further than that. Like there's Globeki Tepe, I think it's called, right? And if you haven't checked it out, right, it's it was unearthed in Turkey somewhere, right? And it's, I think, 12,000 years old, and it's a proper full-on stone complex with stone carvings of animals going up and down the walls and stuff like this. Proper full civilization when there should not have been any civilization whatsoever. So this is not even proto-civilization. This is like, hang on a second, there's like what looks like a fully formed civilization there, and we have absolutely no evidence of anything before that, and then we lose evidence of it and we don't pick it up again until the Sumerians or the Hittites or the Babylonians or Gozer or whatever the hell it is, so
Gobekli Tepe is a really fascinating one, because at that stage people were still hunter-gatherers. There's no reason for them to be building any sort of structure, certainly not those massive weird sort of upside down T's. They all look like Thor hammer. You ever seen Thor's hammer represented in Norse jewelry and stuff from that period? It's a very chunky upper case T. It's just those tons of them, big circles of them. And it also looks like the site was deliberately filled. It wasn't just buried, or wasn't knocked over, or wasn't abandoned and walked away from.
Yeah, I know.
It was deliberately filled in because it's all so perfectly preserved. It's a fascinating one. Yeah.
Oh, it's a real mystery. It's like a proper real mystery. I think we're in the day and age, right, where 2022 we're going to see aliens, but I reckon we'll also find out that there was truth to Noah's flood and stuff like that. Now, not exactly entire planet wise covered in water, but I think we'll find out that at the end of the last ice age there was a massive catastrophe that flooded all over the Americas and Europe and the like. So I reckon that destroyed our civilization that created that. I reckon they're all. I reckon the sea levels rose, and it's all there to be found. But you have to go swimming to find it. I don't know about you, Jerry, but it's too damn cold here. Unless we were going to Donegal for beer, and we would all float over on a door boat. So
it would be what I'd do. Check out Irving Finkel's book / documentary on the Ark, because that's fascinating. I'll just throw that one out there so people can go off and look for. If you don't know who Irving Finkel is, he's curator of Babylonian antiquities at the British Museum and a legend,
an absolute legend.
But apart from the First Empire, we have more news. And what news is next, Ben?
So next up, we're moving to Atomic Mass Games because they have been showing off a couple of their new releases that are going to be coming out in the first quarter of 2022, which is pretty awesome. So we're getting sort of a couple of new characters. We're starting off with Nick Fury, or Nick Fury Jr., depending on how you approach it, I guess, and which comic books you're reading. But this is the Samuel L. Jackson version of him, essentially. Nice. So you're going to get yourself an awesome Nick Fury miniature, who I think is looking pretty damn cool there, as he is wont to be, alongside something that's a little bit new for Marvel Crisis Protocol. And that's these sort of like sort of minion goon style sets where it's a bunch of the sort of like, I guess you'd say nobodies or extras sort of bundled together to use in your games. Although the one at the front there does look a lot like Maria Hill. So there you go.
I was thinking that.
But this is kind of sort of a new direction for them. They're doing this. They're sort of working towards adding in a lot more of these kind of like troops, I guess you'd say, to Marvel Crisis Protocol, which I think is a really fun idea.
Yeah.
It certainly opens up the possibilities when it comes to scenarios and that kind of thing, because you then suddenly have the ability to, maybe if you wanted to approach it from a cooperative or a solo standpoint, have something like a large mass of sort of effectively, I say, extras. Again,
are these like agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of dudes?
They're the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and there's your Nick Fury as well. I should also point out that massive thing you see in the background, that's not just been made for this photo. That is actually going to be available. So the Quinjet, you're going to be able to buy that. And it is listed as a terrain kit. So it's not going to actually have any rules, probably.
Well, it will have rules because there are rules for terrain in Marvel Crisis Protocol. Whether you're picking it up and smashing it into somebody's head, or you're throwing somebody off it.
So Hulk can use that to beat the hell out of somebody else.
Absolutely.
I imagine he will.
But yeah, so you've got a Quinjet, which is pretty cool. They're also got a couple of new releases for sort of your New York style adventures. So you want to head down into Hell's Kitchen. You're going to be able to pick up the Shadowlands Daredevil and Elektra and Hand Ninja set.
Nice.
So come in one pack. Again, going with the idea of sort of creating those sort of minions and goons for you to use in your games. You've also got in this set as well, them kind of looking at the idea of telling a particular comic book story. So I only did a little bit of research on this, so people can correct me if they know more about it.
They will.
But the Shadowlands Daredevil thing is that he comes back and he is suddenly a lot more brutal and deadly, and he actually goes out and kills Bullseye, who a lot of people will know is his arch nemesis, or Colin Farrell.
He's magic.
And so then, as he's the head of the Hand Ninjas, everyone has to try and work out what's happened to Daredevil. And so you can play out a really interesting story, bringing in the likes of Spider-Man and Luke Cage and Iron Fist and all that kind of stuff, and Elektra, of course, there as well, to try and sort of work out what the problem is with Daredevil. I won't say any more about it, just in case you want to read those particular comics, I guess. But some really fun miniatures there as well that are sort of telling a particular story within the Marvel Universe, especially the comic books anyway. I'd like to see them do more of that.
I
think
like
it'd be really cool to see them be like, let's follow an Old Man Logan storyline or something.
That's great, yeah.
To focus directly on that. I think that'd be really fun and open up the opportunity for them to do like campaign books and supplements and that kind of thing.
It also makes sense when you look at how often heroes were up against groups of people.
Yeah.
But in Marvel Crisis Protocol, if you put a randomer up against one of the heroes, they'll get flattened.
Get beaten to death.
So having them as a little collective kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a good picture there because it cuts the top of the rope off.
Yes.
I was thinking about this
looks like a snake charmer. One of these. Or maybe it's a piece of rebar,
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that they're going to just get rid of that and resculpt the guy a little bit. But I think it's a really fun direction to go in. There's obviously limitless possibilities when it comes to Marvel.
I know exactly what to do with that. Easy fix. Balloon.
Just put it on there.
Just put a wee balloon on it, and it'll be perfect.
How dare you interrupt our S.H.I.E.L.D. anniversary party?
I tell you what, Spider-Man.
Spider-Mans.
No, I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to see the new Spider-Man.
I have seen it. Yeah.
Going home or whatever it is.
But
although we should let's be wary of spoilers just in case, I guess.
Right. Well, it's incredible. Okay, it's incredible. I loved it. And you're talking about Old Man
Logan.
Old Man Logan's story, right? I want to see an elder Peter Parker Spider-Man story with Tobey Maguire.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool? You know, because you have then you literally have what does Spider-Man do when he's in his 40s and he has a sore back? You know, I would love to see more Garfield stuff as well. But I particularly think a gritty Tobey Maguire later Spider-Man kind of thing could be interesting. I think it would be hilarious actually because like what if he settled down with MJ?
Oh yeah.
What if he's a family man? It's going to be like scenes out of Mystery Men, really, isn't it? Like him coming home and cracking the back. It'd be like me. I have to get my daughter to walk on my back just so I can move. Did you
watch the Into the Spider-Verse cartoon?
Into the Spider-Verse is very good. Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Check it out. Yeah.
There's a Peter Parker in there who is not particularly old, but he's a washed up has-been type of Spider-Man.
He's a pizza every day kind of.
He's sitting there with like a pop belly on him, and everything's going kind of wrong for him. But it was a delight to see. Also, Nicolas Cage as Spider Noir in there is great, and I would love to. I mean, if they've gone to the whole point where they've got Garfield and Maguire now in the MCU, technically, canonically, via the multiverse, there's no reason why I can't have my Nicolas Cage Spider Noir.
That's true.
And I want him. Because even when they're in a room with no wind, his coat is flapping and not against the breeze because he is so film noir. It's just magical. But yeah.
Right, what's next?
Well, moving away from superheroes and back to fantasy, as is my want in life. Loke have been releasing a whole host of stuff for their fantasy range, and they have sort of flooded the caroling, I think is the way to go, with the early releases for January. So here you can see what is coming, and they've really upped the game from just books.
Yeah.
At its core, there are still books. So we have the Wilderness Little and Bigger book of wildernessness, which contain the usual sort of twin set of BattleMat books with a whole host of outdoorsy type things, up to and including just double water. You know, so if you want to do your ship or you want to do your landing, it's all there, all handy for people who want to incorrectly play with miniatures in their RPGs. The little book is a 6x6 sort of mini version of that, and I like the fact that you can combine it with the big books as well. So you've got one, or maybe if you don't want to go the whole hog with the big book, but it's nice to work out where people are standing when you're working out a final boss fight, having just a little pocket edition, just a little 6x6 where you can flip it out and then go, okay, put your figures wherever they are so I can at least orientate you correctly is handy to have. Beyond the wilderness itself, though, they've done a couple of other things which are absolutely awesome. The immersive GM screen. So this is a 4-panel screen, double-sided. Right. On one side is a mountainscape, and on the other side is this gorgeous sort of city. This is one panel out of it.
Beautiful idea. For photography even. It's
that's what I was looking at it, because I'm going, oh my God.
Put that up against the mat, and so you've got like a surround for your...
You've got a surround, exactly. So even if you're not needing it for a GM screen,
for sure,
it just makes a great backdrop. And if you don't need a particular GM screen, then having a generic one just to hide your stuff behind is always handy.
Yeah, because there's nothing on the other side of it, so it's just sort of like just the images. Which is
it's
nice,
double-sided, So on one side city, on one side outdoors.
It's perfect for the likes of me, because I'm fairly system agnostic.
Yeah,
you know, I'll make shit up as I go along.
On the back, you can just.
So I just want that, and to have it that it also has a picturesque function. What is it? An aesthetic function. Mm-hmm. This is genius. Like this is absolutely. And the other thing I noticed in there was a little deck of cards called Combat Twists and stuff.
Just about to move on to those. We don't have a big picture of the Combat Twists, although they are there. However, I have been flicking through them because we have this at the studio, and I'm going to do a vlog on this to show the bits and pieces off. But the Combat Twist little deck sort of opens up, and there are 4 mini decks in there, which are things like a location deck. So you can just shuffle it randomly, and it will say the player furthest away with the most armor gets hit on the left leg. It just hurts. Or it might say the closest caster to the body gets hit in the right eye. They lose depth perception. So you can use as much or as little as you want.
Love
because
that.
it gives you a way to target characters. So maybe you just need to go, who's getting hit? Look at the first line. It tells you which member of the party it will be, depending on where they're standing. Or maybe you want an actual location on the body, or an effect, or all of them. You can do that. There's the... I'm trying to remember what the green deck is. I think it's like the wilderness deck. So again, ties into the book, and it will have just random stuff that happens. So maybe the terrain, for some reason, the terrain is magical, or the terrain might be mechanical, or the terrain is something, and it just gets up and walks away to somewhere else. So all of a sudden, your group that's been hiding behind these trees and rocks, waiting to ambush some, orcs coming along the road, and all of a sudden, all of their hiddenness gets moved as the rocks just wander off, leaving them crouching there like morons. My favorite out of all the cards is the random encounter where a lonely goblin in the middle of a combat just comes running out of nowhere and runs up to somebody for a hug. Where's that come from? What's going on? Now, I imagine in the cut and thrust of an encounter, somebody's going to plant that goblin before he gets a chance to hug them. But
the thing is, I was going to say, the thing that's really nice about this is that it, like, a lot of people say, oh, why don't you just come up with this as a GM yourself? And I'm like, well, it's a hard-ass job being a GM in the first place, or a DM, whatever. And these just make the job easier. And why would anyone say no to something that makes your job easier and helps you out in that? Because it's really hard sometimes to come up with things on the fly. And a deck like that to be like, cool, well, this makes this encounter suddenly 10 times more fun because you've got these different randomizers in there. I
will go one step further. As a GM, you've built your encounter. You've spent all your time, maybe weeks, planning it out, drawing the maps, and then your players immediately turn left instead of right, ignore everything they've just been told, and then go somewhere else. And then you're left going, right, what's going to happen to them? At that point, the random cards come out, and that will teach them. And speaking of random, Untold Encounters, this is a 350-page hardback book. It's split into...
Who makes this?
This is Loke as well. And it's split into wilderness, city, and something else. So you can literally go right there in a city and then go to a big book of, or just those chapters of encounters, and randomly pick out stuff from it. So you can use this to generate your encounters in advance. You can use this to help build your games, or you can use it if you just need to, cover up for the fact that they've gone completely off book and have annoyed your happiness. There's a ton of random tables. There's over 1,000 adventures cooked into this, but there's also a couple of pre-written ones specifically for 5th edition. So if you are playing D&D, then you can use the ones that are already written for you and then expand and extrapolate from the random encounters. Or if you're just playing something generic, it's a big book of encounters, tables, paragraphs, and all sorts of stuff.
Inspiration, Agent.
Yeah, I think they've made it so that while obviously it's got that 5th edition compatibility, it obviously could be used for anything in that regard. Because there's lots of things where it's like, if you're doing this or whatever, just tweak this or whatever.
There are little cutout boxes in different colors, and it will go, there's an encounter at a caravan, maybe you're doing a wilderness one, and it will go, this is what it is for 5th, and then underneath it will go, here's what here are the main salient points for making it generic. So like it's a bruiser's in charge of the group, so he's going to be a bit of a tough fighter, and certain things, that make that encounter without actually going here as a stat line. So if you're just playing a game of like GURPS or Tunnels and Trolls, you can go in and tweak it to the system you're using.
Well, this is the point of the show where I'm going to turn into Cilla Black.
Right.
That might not be international enough. I'm going to turn into Gozer. Okay. Right?
Go on.
I've got my 2 demon dogs. All right. And one of my demon dogs is you guys over at Loke, because you're blowing my mind. And then my other demon dog is Joe McCullough, because he blows my mind. I'm going to get my demon dogs together, and they're going to do what demon dogs do when they're finished sniffing each other's butts. And they're going to get together.
Interesting image in my head of Loke.
Yeah, and Joe McCullough is going to write a whole series of scenarios. So every time you flip over a page in what that Wilderness book or any of the other books, there's a pre-made scenario that you could just play out. Now tell me that's not Cilla Black / Gozer awesomeness right there.
It's certainly going to be a Laura laughs.
A Laura laugh.
Fascinating stuff. Say I'll be going through all of that in a vlog in the not too distant. I'm not going to put any particular date on it because I don't know when
Tuesday
we'll actually get done for. Oh, I could have a film for Tuesday. Our editor may have a stroke. I tell him Tuesday. So keep your eye out for that. And I'm also looking to talk to Tamsin, and I think it's Matt. Is Matt her husband? Anyway, the people responsible for Loke as well, because
it's incredible stuff. I love it.
They've been doing a ton of stuff, and they're really starting to expand beyond just here is a generic terrain book that you can use into these much broader sort of world building and adventure building parts as well.
It's also not just fantasy stuff. Like we talked about it before the end of last year. They did a sci-fi one, which was all digital. So if you play virtual tabletop, you've got that options. They also do the cyberpunk BattleMats as well for Asuryani. So if you want to do all that stuff, you've got there as well.
On that note, because I did notice it, which I'm not sure whether or not it's in the article. But when I opened up the big book of Untold Encounters, there was a digital code in that as well. So whenever you buy it, you get a digital version.
I think it's from Drive Through RPG, and you just get the downloads.
Nice.
Fantastic.
So I'll be covering that up with a sticker so nobody else gets that.
Well, what's next?
Well, Unexpected Games have recently announced a board game title that the premise could potentially get us here at OnTableTop in a bit of trouble. So, Voices in My Head it is called, and it's been confirmed for this court review, and players are going to step into the mind, not step into the mind as a main character called Guy. Now, what you've got to do with Guy is you've got to get him out of serious trouble because he's in a court case. And you're going to have to take role as his personality. So you're going to need to take role of his personality traits. Remember, though, the voices inside your head are not always going to be pointing you in the direction that you think should be a good idea. So the game does take place in a courtroom. So against a prosecutor and a seemingly objective jury. The game has got hidden goals, and it's going to place Guy up in a trial. And several players are going to be taking the role as good guys and helping him get off scot-free. But one player in particular is going to take the role of prosecutor, and he's going to have very serious influence over the jury. So it's up to all of the personality traits alike, such as honesty, bravery, and many more, to meet the hidden goals throughout the game to progress in the court case. So the case may result in a conviction for Guy, bless him. It is his defence is not too good enough, and that could mean like a comfy enrolment into a lovely prison. But voices inside Guy's head can achieve anything if they want to get him off scot-free. So
has Justin seen this yet?
No, he hasn't.
No, he hasn't.
Because this is basically Justin's simulator, right? Because this is how Justin's mind works. You know, like if we chop the top off his head, there'd be little counters in there and little beans in there, wondering what the hell's going on, and just prodding him and moving him in whatever general direction he needs to go. He'll love this. He will love this.
It's certainly a good one for Justin, but the only way that players can get freedom for Guy is just by watching the story unfold, what happens in the courtroom, and utilising the different personality traits that he has in Guy's favour. So There's no release date yet, but we do know that he's going to be coming in Q1 this year. So you can pre-order it over at Asmodee or any of your favourite online stores. Ooh. But it is out there, so it's quite an interesting concept.
Do you remember the Numbskulls comic?
Yes.
That's all I can think of is the Numbskulls running around there trying desperately to get him out of this jam. It's not going to go well.
It's an interesting one. It's an interesting one for board games this year, I think, because I've seen a lot of them popping up in the last sort of week or so, where I'm like, finally, I'm getting excited for a year of interesting board games. Because over the last couple of years, we've had sort of a little bit of a lull because of obviously everything that's been happening in the world. So there's not been anything that's come out that I've gone, I definitely need to play that or whatever. But Voices in My Head sounds really fun. I could see that being a very good convention game as well. I see that being good.
I agree. So, interesting take. I'm actually looking to see more about it. Where are we off to next?
Well, we're going to leave Justin's head behind, I think.
Well, yes, yeah. So we'll leave Justin's head and we'll actually burrow our way inside John's head instead, because Battlefront have got a whole raft of awesome things popping up for not just Flames of War, but also World War III Team Yankee throughout 2022. So they put together this little video, as you can see here, where they talk through what's going to be coming. And basically, this shows everything up on that table, right? So there's going to be 2 big new boxed games coming up, focused on the North Africa campaigns and the mid-war. So you're going to have Tobruk, which is awesome, obviously. And then you're also going to have Kasserine as well. Both of these sets are obviously focused on bringing loads and loads of plastic miniatures to the tabletop for you to play out that mid-war period, which is cool. You're also then going to get army boxes, which are then built to suit all the different factions involved with that. So there's 4 different sort of army boxes coming up, which is also, again, very awesome. And of course, then you have the North Africa mid-war book at the same time as well. So there is everything you could need for diving into Flames of War, World War II, and enjoying that sort of period of warfare. I think, apart from, I guess, maybe sort of the Normandy landings and that sort of period of World War II, I think North Africa and that kind of desert rat situation, I think, is one of those that sort of has this really iconic feel to it. And it's awesome to see sort of Battlefront returning to that and building up these different box sets for people to play around with and have fun with. As you can see, laden down with tanks. It wouldn't be Flames of War without lots and lots of tanks. So there's lots of different things for you to check out there. In addition to that, if you are still playing games set during the late war period and sort of delving into the Bulge, you're going to get 2 new books. So you're going to have a Bulge German book, and you're also going to have a Bulge British book at the same time too. So obviously the focus has been very much on the US running up to the end of last year, but the sort of twisting things and playing around with that a little bit, adding in new books for both those factions. And of course, there's going to be new plastic sets for all of that as well. Then to cap everything.
Hang on a second. This is being presented by Peter Siminovich himself.
Yes.
That man is a f***ing legend. I'm blown away to the fact that Peter's on the oh, Peter! It's like, he is an absolute legend. Like, it's him and there's John Stallard, like the 2 gods of gaming as far as I'm concerned. It's like, wow. He is a minefield for this information. There's nobody in the world, even our John, who's more passionate about this World War II topic than Peter Siminovich. I'm going to be Gozer again. We need to get Peter Siminovich and Peter Jackson together. Boom. We do the Battle of the Bulge. Get back.
It's one way of doing it, certainly.
3 hours of arguing in a room. Yeah.
Yes.
And we also have some new stuff for World War III as well. So they're going to be doing, they're building up and sort of exploring the Warsaw Pact as well. So there's going to be a lot more focus on that. There was a little bit of a focus on that towards the end of last year, but they're going to be sort of twisting and playing around with that a little bit more, building on what they've done previously for World War III. Bringing in loads of extra stuff for the East Germans, the Polish, Czechoslovakians, and all that kind of thing as well. So some nice stuff there. Again, lots and lots more plastic kits if you want to play that sort of Cold War gone hot. The big thing, though, and this was one that was sort of teased, is that they're also going to be doing Red Dawn. So the proper big Russian invasion of America is going to be played out on the tabletop later this year for World War III Team Yankee.
By Bagsy Swayze.
But before we go any further, that's great.
That is amazing. I love that. Yes, it's their awesome little objective marker that is obviously a nod to something. So you're going to be able to play out the proper invasion of America again with loads of new plastic kits and everything in the mix as well for Battlefront and what they're doing there. So
we could all probably just jump to the end and do Ukraine.
Well,
that would be spoiling the story, Mark.
Spoilers for reality.
So there's absolutely loads of stuff coming out for both World War II and World War III, the world that wasn't, but nearly was.
That is awesome.
Give it time.
Really cool stuff.
And now we have the lesser spotted Peter Siminovich on camera. Let's reach out there and see if we can get Peter on the show.
Well, yeah, I'm hoping that we could do some really fun stuff with Battlefront in the next year or so. It'd be really good to get some good demo games and playing some 15mm World War II on the tabletop. I think that'd be really good. So yeah,
awesome.
Yes, we finish off with some Games Workshop news, because they have not been silent over the holiday period and the beginning of January. So, what have I been talking about on Cult of Games for the last 6 months? Is it Eldar? Yes, it was Eldar. Right, well, thankfully, the Eldar, also known as the Eldari, also known as the Asuryani, are going to be coming to the tabletop as part of a new boxed set called Eldritch Omens. They're going to be presenting us with a whole bunch of new Eldar miniatures alongside some more of the Heretic Astartes as well, or the Chaos Space Marines if you're from an older generation. So
I am, thank you.
For thine Eldar forces, you are going to get a new plastic autarch there, done in Simhan colours, as you can see there. But all of the different options there, so you've got different melee weapons and range weapons. In addition to that, this can also be plugged into the existing autarch kit, which comes with the big swooping hawk wings. So if you want to play around with both this kit and that kit, you can do that, which is awesome. You then are going to get, finally, they're not in Finecast anymore, thank God. We're going to be getting the Asuryani Rangers. So if, like me, you need to pick up some plastic Rangers to help complement your force, you're going to get some new options on that front. I think they look really cool, fun ideas with these. I've always liked this camo cloak look. And it's, I think I'm going to try and give all of them helmets, because there's something about Eldar without helmets on that's a bit weird. But I think these look very cool.
People will just shoot you in the head if you don't wear your helmet.
I was going to ask you if you're tempted there, Ben, but I think you've already answered.
I am tempted. Yes.
I have 20 odd of those in metal. I didn't realise they'd made them in Finecast.
Yes, they did, and they ruined everyone's lives.
Yeah.
And then we're also going to be finishing things off with a new unit for the Eldari, the Asuryani, which are called the Shroud Runners. So this is a sort of spin on their jet bikes, where they've got a couple of mounted scouts, the rangers on the back of them. So you're going to have a new unit popping up in your codex, or my codex, I guess, in the next couple of months to play around with. Maybe I'll have to entirely rethink my Iandan army. That would be the way, wouldn't it? But we'll have to see how that goes together. At least I'm not playing Alatok, I guess. Or no, that would be a good idea to play Alatok. But yeah. Anyway, some really cool stuff coming up in plastic for those. It was also teased that we are going to be getting, fingers crossed, lots of new Aspect Warriors. Hopefully they don't hold back on that and they give us a whole bunch of them very, very quickly. I would love to get some more of those, because I've been playing around with metal models and they're great, but I'd love to have some slightly more scale appropriate ones to the rest of my force, I guess. We've also got new Guardians and everything coming out for the Eldar as well. So yes, that 20-odd year kit that has been around forever is finally getting replaced. That's the first kit I picked up. Look, the first kit I picked up when I started the hobby, and now it's finally being replaced.
It's time, Ben. It's time.
I know you're old when your army finally gets a revamp.
Exactly, yeah. So yes, lots of big new stuff coming up for the Eldar, the Asuryani. For the Chaos Space Marine side of things, we're going to get a new Warpsmith model, which is the one you see there. Looks pretty cool. Very awesome stuff, sort of like their kind of chaos spin on a tech priest, tech marine. Very cool, lots of spindly things. Talking about Spider-Man earlier. Very, very, very
handy.
That's handy for hobbying.
Yeah. When your wounds are open, he'll hot glue them together.
Nice. How thoughtful.
Yeah, you've also got a new set of the Chaos Chosen as well. So they might not be outfitted perfectly for everyone who wants to play 40k. Apparently, the weapon options are a bit lackluster, but that's a new set of Chaos Space Marines there that are obviously going to be a bit more chunky, which is great, obviously, for people who are trying to build up a Chaos Space Marine force to match the new Primaris. And there's also included in this box a Forge Fiend, which is one of the older models from the range, but that's obviously been put in there because the whole idea of it being sort of engineer based and that kind of thing. So that's in there too. So this is obviously going to herald the new codexes for the Eldari, the Asuryani, and the Chaos Space Marines, the Heretics Astartes, coming up from that. Those books are already out. You don't have to worry about them. We're going to hop on to the next one because there's a whole bunch of new stuff coming out in terms of combat patrol sets as well. Oh, look, a Space Marine. Who would have thought it? But there are 5 new combat patrol boxes coming up from Games Workshop in the next couple of weeks. These are all to kind of build on the new codexes that have been out recently. Last year, we obviously had the Grey Knights and the Thousand Suns. They're getting new combat patrol sets. You've also got new ones for the Adeptus Custodes and the Gene Stealer Cults. So they are the ones that recently got, I'm getting their codexes this week. So that's some pretty cool stuff there. And we also have one for the Tau Empire as well,
Nice.
which is the faction that is coming up in the next couple of weeks. That's going to be getting an update alongside a new kill team set as well.
But no new crit.
No new crew, not yet. Nothing for Lloyd, unfortunately. But yeah, maybe we'll get a crew only codex in the future. Who knows?
Wishful
Oh,
thinking.
I think so. Is this? I just jumped back to the start of it because I've heard that there's some sort of nonsense with seasons coming.
So,
is this the start of this?
No, well, yes, kind of. Well, the seasons aren't particularly tied to any box sets. They're tied to a series of books.
Right.
So the way that they're working it now, in essence, they've already kind of been doing this because they've been building all these Warzone books over the last couple of years, which kind of focus in on particular planets within the Imperium or whatever, and tell us a specific story. And obviously, they did it with Psychic Awakening as well. They're kind of doing that, but they've then sort of bundled into the idea of it being seasons now. So 6 months of the year is going to be dedicated to a particular storyline within the world of Warhammer 40,000. In this case, it's going to be focused around, I think it's Vigilus, I think it's the world they're going to be focusing on. And it's going to tell a particular story. And it's kind of there to give a set of new sort of mission parameters and that kind of thing for events if they want to run them. But it's also there a little bit more, I think, for those people playing Crusade mode in Warhammer 40,000. For anyone who doesn't know about Crusade mode, that's the kind of like more narrative version of it, where you build a force, and in many respects, very similar to Stillmania, if anyone remembers that. It is, you build a force, that is what you have. You cannot go beyond those bounds, and you build onto that and add to it. So it's less competitive, more sort of story driven, which I think is really cool. And obviously, people are it obviously means more books coming out more often, which I'm sure for a lot of people who want to try and keep up with the speed of Games Workshop is going to be a bit of a hassle. But as someone pointed out to me on social media this last week, and I was also thinking the same thing, you buy as much as you want to and have fun with it, because one of the big things we've always said is it's all about gaming in the gaps and having fun with particular elements of the hobby that you enjoy. So if you don't want to keep up with the rat race that is Games Workshop release schedule, just buy the things you want with your friends and just play that. That's what I do. That's what John does. So, it's an easy way to approach this thing without getting too molded by it all. So
I just like to point out my favorite part of all of the GW stuff that's just come out there, right? Is the camo pattern they've painted on those Rangers. I quite like that.
Yeah, it's different.
I mean, putting sniper rifles on the back of a jetbike is ridiculous. They're
like Mongols.
That is pointless. How are you going to hit anything? No, just no. But it's a really nice camo pattern, and you can see it's repeated on the actual hull as well. So that's good. This is nonsense, but this is good. Nonsense.
There is also going to be a new Avatar of Kane model coming out as well, so that'll be fun.
That's right. I found the hair for the one I sent you, Ben.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Because currently mine is hairless. But
I can send you that if you want it.
No, it would be. Currently, he's got a nice little pointy hat, so it's
nice.
I just cut mine off. I just went snip. Yeah. Actually, to be fair, when I found the hair, I also found what I was converting into a Howling Banshee for when I was going to run just a full Banshee army with an avatar. Cool. So she's got a lot of green stuff going on back there to turn her into a big mop of hair. Yeah. This is a chat about what's in my Riffloff. Yeah.
Well, before we move on, I'm going to do the community service announcement. Okay, Games Workshop's latest financial results came out. All very good, all very positive, very very interesting. And another potentially positive development: they are now creating an outreach group within Games Workshop to reach out to support independent creators who want to promote the Warhammer hobby. Okay.
Isn't there a meme with they're up to something?
Okay. Look, I'm going to do the canary in the mine thing here. I just want to put this out now because I think if we address the elephant in the room right now, it may never happen. Okay. If a certain large company sits down with you, as has happened with me, so I'm talking from experience here, okay, and their junior person or whoever it will be, and it will be a junior person who will be talking to you, believe me. If they happen to turn around and tell you, so long as you say nice things about us, we will continue to work with you. I want you to understand it doesn't work like that. It's not that anybody sets out to say anything negative about anybody, but a relationship of mutual respect doesn't start like that. Mm-mm. So I'm just doing the canary down the mine that if that's the tone or the words that you hear in the future in all of this, take a moment to reflect and have a think, because it doesn't work like that. That's all I got to say.
This was a public service announcement.
There you go.
Cue one of those old, kid
know.
reaching for
what? Under the table.
Kid reaching for the flying frisbee in the ceramic power transformer.
Oh yeah, with the power transformers. Yep.
Yeah. It's like that.
Don't be the kid that reaches for the frisbee and the power transformers. Know your electrical safety and stay out of building sites.
All of that and more.
Yes.
We're going to come back with a building site when we dive into our 3D printing segment. So we're going to take a quick swish. All right, folks. So we are back and we're going to be diving into the world of 3D printing because everybody knows that I love 3D printing so much. I'm always on the lookout for 3D printing things.
Yeah, this week especially, Jerry.
Yeah, weirdly, I found this one. None of you expected that. I certainly didn't expect that. In my defense, right? No, you shut up. In my defense, I found this on the interwebs and I went, oh my God, that's amazing. And then I thought that would be a great game of like Star Wars or something apocalyptic over this Dune-like sci-fi post-apocalyptic thing. And I went, I wonder who makes it. And then I started looking at it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And then I realized that wasn't 28 mil. That was much, much smaller. And it turned out it was 6 mil.
Really?
I was like, oh, holy balls, as they say in France.
So good.
That's very Fallout, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dude.
It might be.
Some of our oldest, beardiest grognards in our community are going to be in vogue.
Yeah, well, God, yeah.
Based on this, they'll hate it.
It's all the goodness of the oldie pasty.
That's 6 mil.
This is 6 mil. God. This was quite cute as well, and we'll have a look at his my mini factory in a moment. But the fact that he did a radar tower or radar dish, and then somebody pointed out that it was using the scaffolding that you have to put on for 3D printing as part of the structure.
Yeah. Yes.
They're going, that's genius.
That is smart.
Apparently you still need more scaffolding for your scaffolding.
Yes, you do.
But you two can push Sean Bean into the middle of a radar dish.
Yes. Yeah.
Shame. So, like myself, this man is lazy. This is the lazy forger. And
it's an unfortunate name.
It's a great name.
Is it based in China by any chance?
He stole all of this.
Okay, he just went in there and just went, I'm just having all of this. This is all I know. There is, I think, one, maybe two 28 mil sculpted bits, which are a couple of tables in case you need to, have tables.
Like zombie apocalypse and that kind of thing.
Yeah. But otherwise it is mostly sculpted for 6 mil. And I mean, you could embiggen it to 10 or 15 mil, God scale, without.
Well, that's Mos Eisley right there, isn't it?
I mean, you're not losing huge amount of detail if you're going to push that up to 10 or 15.
No.
And
so good.
Yeah.
They are gorgeous.
Just words fail me. We may be lucky, maybe he'll walk out into traffic or something because nobody deserves to be that talented.
Yeah.
not when I have to live my life being me, stuck in a fat me shell.
But you could totally do a Boba Fett and gang on mobility scooters chase.
Yes.
In that. You know, and you would have the range because 6 mil, like imagine like a 4-foot gaming table set up with 6 mil. It'd be like a continent.
But that's it.
Yeah, it was.
When I looked at the initial big city across that ravine, I thought it was a 6x4 sort of table, you know, a massive.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's just like 1 foot square. So yeah, you've definitely got the room, and then you've got the likes of this.
The little mechs stomping around.
That's so nice.
Stomping around, because he doesn't just do terrain, although the terrain is fairly magical.
Yes.
A lot of it was very good for drop zone commander, but then you've also got this stuff which, for people who still play Epic, of which there are many, obviously Epic is an very old GW game, and the armies in Epic are therefore quite old, which means they miss the most recent edition, which is the Tau. And this, while not Tau, could quite happily work for Tau in Epic scale if you're planning on playing that way. You've got your drones, you've got your various sort of giant mecha Gundam-y things, and your weird and wacky tanks and walkers.
What scale's Battletech? Is that 6 mil? Is that 6 mil?
Battletech is, I think Battletech is smaller than 6 mil. Yeah, you can get infantry and stuff, but they're tiny. Somebody's bound to correct us, because they always do. But you know, we don't listen to you. There's no point correcting us. We don't listen to you.
Titanicus is 8 mil, isn't it? So you can always, which is epic, effectively.
Yeah. So that was it. When they brought Titanicus back, it was, we're going to bring back essentially Epic, but then we're going to do it at a different scale, so you can't use your old Epic stuff for reasons.
Just because.
But you know,
man, I love those. Oh.
Yeah, tiny.
Go back to the buildings.
It's a thing of beauty. Which buildings would you like to see?
The pylons, the transmission.
Are there any fantasy buildings?
There are some fantasy buildings once we get past the
because the sci-fi is amazing. But look, this is easy. I want all of that. And I want to do either 6 mil Star Wars or 6 mil Starship Troopers.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, I'm going to drag you back to your favorite place, which is the Crusades, with his Western Kingdom stuff. So you two can play out 6 mil Crusades. Look, trebuchets and ruined some sort of ruined church /
brickwork.
It's gorgeous.
I imagine he just sculpts this in 1-to-1 scale and then debigulates it with some sort of shrink ray. I have no idea how 3D printing works.
Just like that.
Yeah.
It's just a process of debigulation, as you say, Jerry.
Yeah.
So
the nice thing about these, I mean, if you're looking at the very buckets there, the trebuchets in the middle, they have the hamster wheel for to wind them back.
Detailed, yeah.
So you've got your tiny little peasants in there walking away to wind back.
I have 15 mil versions of all of this that aren't as detailed as this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like,
isn't it?
I'm looking at it and I'm feeling envious because my 15 mil stuff's not as good as this.
Matlets.
But I'm not going to do it again. I'm not doing it again.
No, well, I mean, that would be madness.
I really love those. The fact that the room buildings have individual timbers all at different angles, I think is the thing for me. It doesn't need to be there, but it is, which I think is
a beautiful touch, isn't it?
Yeah, things like that where it's just beams are listing.
What a wonderful collection! Yeah,
yeah. He also does a little army as well.
Brilliant.
In fact, if we have a look at the army bundle, that's probably the best way. You two can play your Western Kingdoms in tiny scale.
Is this wee tiny knights?
Tiny infantry.
They go well with your elephants, Warren.
Tiny Scottish childrens with their massive pikes.
Paint some blue, paint some red. You've got 2 armies ready to go to war. Yeah.
You've got a whole Game of Thrones thing going on there.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, you could do something like the Battle of the but not like the TV series where it was terrible. So what's going to happen here? One man's going to run an army. To be brutally honest, you deserve to die there, Jon Snow. I'm just saying.
Because he knows nothing.
Yeah. I know he knows nothing, but surely you would know enough to not run an army by yourself.
You think?
Well, I would.
Jerry, these are the people that put their trebuchets outside their
that's true. Walls. They did put them outside the castle walls, yeah. It's almost like I have a castle. But yeah. So There's an army.
Because your little tiny wooden trebuchets are there to protect big ass stone walls.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
An army on a cutting mat.
Wow.
Yeah.
We were talking about Spider-Man earlier. It's like that power of the sun in the palm of your hand type of thing. Well, in this case, the power of a nation in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just absolutely...
That's incredible.
Stonking. He has his own little webular site, which is called thelazyforger.com. And there are a few things that we haven't seen, things like the Town Well, so sort of more 28 mil.
Tudors.
Yeah. But having access to these things like your 7TV Apocalypse bundle, so this is where you get your scatter terrain in 28 mil.
Those stone runes.
So not all of this is across on his My Mini Factory.
Mm-hmm.
So I know all the terms. But no, you shut up. But it's great to see, because things like this, the incidental pieces, like your Jersey barriers or your Coke machines or things
put these inside some of the foreground buildings.
Yeah.
For your like offices and your shopping malls and that kind of thing.
Perfect. Perfect.
I mean, even
I love this.
I'm going to say, it is the apocalypse. They're still tinier than my desk is.
Yay!
And they've been through an apocalypse.
I like
me.
I like the paper's been sculpted on the desk as well, so you don't have to like freehand anything.
No.
You can just be like, oh, there's some paper spread out all over there, and it's a little
Tiny
thing again.
cactus.
But the tiny cactus, you've got the different drawers open at different levels as people have been rummaging through them. Oh,
different
there's something awesome about tiny little chairs, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I get it then. I get it.
Love it. Yeah. Absolutely love it.
So much to look at, so little time. But if you're into the 6 mil stuff, whether it's fantasy, sci-fi, modern, or post-apocalyptic,
it's amazing.
There is amazing ranges of buildings and terrain and scenery. Less for the 28 mil, but there's still some really nice incidental pieces. And then obviously there's the sci-fi and the fantasy / historic army as well. I mean, the Lazy Forger has kind of got it all.
Yeah. Very good choice this week, Jerry, considering as well.
See?
Right, we've hit that point. It's time to look at what's happening on Kickstarter. I've been out of the loop for a long time, Ben, so I'm looking forward to this.
Well, I would be starting things off, but I got told I got to wait till next week. So Jerry is leading the way, talking about Guardians of Fire from Magical Miniature Game, which we had a look at on the site. So
yeah, so Guardians of Fire. This is a relaunch. They brought it to Kickstarter last year, and then there was essentially a lot of feedback while it was going. It was coming along quite well in the funding, but people were looking for more miniatures and more expansions and more. And the fact that they're being told it may come in stretch goals apparently wasn't enough. So they relaunched it, increasing the amount of stuff that's in the core set. So the core set went up to, I want to say, 51 miniatures, which doesn't sound like a lot until you see the size of these miniatures. Recently did an unboxing. The standard figures are 40 mil. The big demons, or Devra, because this is based on Zoroastrian religion and mythology, are massive. They are probably around about 70 mil tall, these fellas. So they added in new sculpts for both the Shadows and the Chosen to make them a bit more interesting, doubling the numbers in there. They've got the Cultist Sisters of Sin and the big Dozreki dogs? I don't know, possibly not that. Anyway, the whole premise behind this is you play as the Guardians of Fire, so they are the forces of light attempting to stave off the Angra, the darkness that every 3,000 years comes out and tries to end the world, part of the Zoroastrian mythology. And this is a different take than we normally see. Generally, when anything vaguely Eastern or Persian makes it onto a tabletop game, they're generally the villains. So it's interesting to see somebody just going, you know what, actually, our religion predates yours. We get to be the good guys for once.
We're cool too.
Yeah. And it's a narrative story. So the main core set starts off with the sort of warrior priests or monks or whatever you want to think of them as discovering a threat, sort of an insidious undercurrent within their own order. And then from there, you go on to follow this sort of branching narrative with a very in-depth system behind it as well, because you don't have to complete everything to advance to the next stage of the story. And in fact, you can fail to advance to the next stage of the story. You know, you can fail in your particular scenario, and the darkness just keeps going. Just because you fail doesn't mean they stop and wait for you to catch up. Yeah. So as you progress, there are things that maybe you missed in previous scenarios, or if you didn't investigate every little thing you could have, then you won't know everything that's coming. So, you know, there will be spoilers in the game. So I quite like it. It blurs the line between dungeon crawler and RPG. They're also kicking off with, and this wasn't in the initial sort of run for the Kickstarter, multiple expansions. So there is the Holy Orders expansion, which will bring in Knights Templar as sort of
huge.
Also companion slash they're trying to defeat the darkness but coming at it from another direction, which is interesting. There's also the Assassins and Persian City Guards. So there's a expansion that brings in essentially werewolves trying to overtake a city, and you are Pashar, the captain of the guards, and having to deal with the threat of werewolves just tearing up the town at night, investigating that, trying to find out where it's come from, who's responsible, and dealing with that. So an awful lot of very heavy story-driven narrative in there, with a few extra bits and pieces that they're pushing in. So they're talking about doing a solo mode, which will be fascinating.
Wow.
Because the game itself is one versus many. So somebody plays the darkness and gets to rock out with things like Apush, the Deva of Drought, or Faruk Nizar, the Mother of Ghouls. And then the other people play the heroes, whether they are the City Guard, the Zoroastrian monks, or the Templars, and they're up against the darkness. So when they sort of bring this in and make it a solo mode, that'll be fascinating as to how they do it. But I really like it. It's got some really intriguing mechanics that you don't often see, even down to see these big cards here behind them. When you summon in demons, you've got a play board for the darkness. In fact, you might be able to see it if I scroll far enough. Yay, there we go. So the darkness tracker here, you've got 3 spots at the bottom.
Yeah.
Middle spot is empty. Left spot is draw a darkness card, and the right spot is move the darkness counter forward. If it ever reaches 15, then darkness wins that scenario and gets more XP for the next one.
That's interesting.
But whenever you summon minions, cultists, demons, whatever it happens to be, you have to choose one of those 3 places to put it. So the middle one is free. But then when you go to summon your second batch in, you either have to stop moving the darkness counter forward every turn, or stop drawing a card every turn. So you can choose. You can go, I'm not going to worry about cards because occasionally I might get some from what the heroes are doing. But the mechanics behind it is fascinating. And the as you may have noticed, the figures as we go past are absolutely stonking.
Incredible. Yeah.
So much so that I actually painted up the set that they sent us out for the Let's Play because they were gorgeous. Haven't seen anything like the werewolves yet, although I did have a look at the guard captain, Parsa. I was close, very close. And the detailing on him is absolutely gorgeous. The city guards all have like a lamassu on their shield as well. So again, laying into the Persian, Zoroastrian mythology.
It's based on a comic book as well, isn't it? Or a graphic novel?
I was going to reach out because I think I've got a copy of the first one here.
Oh, yeah.
Now, but weirdly, the comic itself is, while it's based on the principle of the comic, it's not based on the comic. So the comic is set modern day. If people aren't aware, Zoroastrian is not a religion that proselytizes, so you have to be born Zoroastrian. So even though it's the oldest religion, it's been in decline because as people either become atheists, don't have kids, or move away from it, then they lose generations and they can't bring new people in. So the modern guardians haven't been brought up in the tradition that this thing will happen every 3,000 years, and all of a sudden they're thrust into the a push and the Devra are coming back.
Yeah.
The world's going to go to hell in a handbasket, and the current people aren't, there's like a handful of them left who are actually capable of pushing back the darkness. But every now and again, it will flick back to, the 3,000 year previous Guardians. So you get little sort of time jumps of what was happening with them. So it's not a direct, here is the comic books.
Extension, as it were.
Yeah, the comic books are, I think, part of the Kickstarter as well, so you can get a copy of those. But it's interesting. I really like what Imam's doing with them as well.
That's a gorgeous concept. Never mind the execution of it.
Yeah.
Wow, it's quite the chunky campaign as well. They definitely did come back with more.
Yeah, they're. I think they were saying 150 hours of gameplay in it, which is substantial.
The other thing as well is obviously, and you mentioned this when you're talking about the campaign in general, is that the idea that it's approaching things from an entirely different mythology.
Yeah,
that you probably wouldn't know about. Like, we've obviously had a lot of people doing things around Norse mythology.
So much Norse at the moment.
Egyptian, standard, classical,
Roman,
Christian, sort of angels and devils and that kind of thing. We've even seen a lot of people doing stuff about Japanese and Chinese demons and devils and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but I think this sort of Middle Eastern mythology is something that I think a lot more people should be open to, especially because it allows you then to paint more interesting models.
Yeah.
I mean, look at those ones you got in there. If you're someone who loves painting their board games or something, that is perfect because it's an entirely different set of characters that you've probably never seen before.
If you want to have a look at my unboxing, because like I say, I painted a lot. And, they're not great paint jobs because it was quick. But what I will say is there's plenty of detail on those models.
Fun as well.
So you can get away with washes or inks or contrasts or that sort of thing to really sort of lay into them quickly. There's a ton of detail, wealth of detail on them. And it means for once you're not seeing evil dwarves as the only Persians out there, which is kind of, if you're looking for a Lamassu, chances are it's got a stunty bloke on top of it with a massive hat. So it's nice to see somebody, like I say, taking a different look at dungeon crawlers and then taking a whole other mythology and running with it. If you're interested,
and running with it sensitively too. Like there's depth to the research there. That's not just a superficial implementation of a Persian culture. There, there is knowledge behind all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's. I think it's one of those things where it's the person running it. So Imam's obviously from that neck of the woods himself. I don't know if he is Zoroastrian or not, but it was an opportunity for him to present the Persian culture in a way that we don't normally notice or see.
And not just the immortals that are, devilish creatures from 300 or something.
But if you're interested, there's
13 days on that one, Jerry.
13 days left and about 2/3 funded. So I imagine they'll fund. They're releasing sort of new sculpts and new bits and pieces every day, so people can keep an eye on what's coming up.
Well,
but a lot to dive in there.
I have a Kickstarter for you.
Oh, what we got, Warren?
So me and my brother love terrain. Okay,
right.
Well, we've loved making terrain since the early days, right?
Yeah.
And there's a terrain system. Now let me see if I can make this work. I should be able to press a button, and you should be able to see Justin's big bald head. There.
Hey.
Correct.
Right. So the Kickstarter I'm going to talk about is the third cycle of Rampart. Okay. So what you see here is a big old gaming table that we built. Look, there's me and Jerry. And I'm looking up and I'm going, Jerry, goodness me, look how big that is. It's enormous.
I'm desperately trying to suck it. Not working, I notice. But
and then here's a picture of Lloyd. Do you see how it's all coming together and all getting nicely painted and everything? Right. So this is hard plastic terrain. Okay. The Kickstarter itself, Jerry can bring it up. There we go. So this is the 3rd edition, and it adds 2 things to this Rampart terrain that I'm a massive fan of. One is it's adding this new ruined city set. So this is your kind of post-apocalyptic set. All these minis are in it, by the way, as well. The tank and the cavalry and stuff. They're all in it too. But the second thing that it does for me as a terrain builder is they have reinvented the flooring system. So they've redesigned the flooring system that it actually, you now get a sprue of floors.
Nice.
Oh, right.
That's interesting.
So, and it works really well. It really does work. Whenever we built the big table jobby,
40K.
the original flooring system that came with it was more gangway than it was floors.
Yeah.
And we couldn't actually utilize it. So we ended up building our own floors by cutting out card and putting a texture on it, and then putting that between the building floors kind of thing. Okay. Well, they actually took that and took inspiration from us doing that, and then redesigned and re-engineered their own system to work in the same way. But it now has plastic floors, and there's your tops, and on the undersides you even have kind of like pipe work and stuff like that.
Wow, that's awesome.
All right, which is really cool. It's a great system. Now in this Kickstarter, as well as that new city runes for the post-apocalyptic, you can also avail of the previous 3 ranges. So post-apocalyptic is number 4. Okay. There's Cobalt, which is that one that you're just seeing on the screen at the moment. It's a kind of a very industrial, it's very 40K, very industrial 40K. There's Tribal, which is basically an Aztec kind of thing. Really, really cool. Really cool. And then you have Gothic. And the Gothic one is, as you see, if you're looking at me, again, it is there. That's Lloydie standing in front of the Gothic. Now, I just want to put this out there. Next week, I'm hoping to sit down with Michael from Archon Studio to do a deep dive into this terrain, so as to go through, its history, where it's been, where it's at, and so on. And I was fortunate enough that they sent me some samples to have a play with. Yeah. Okay, so previously I've done the big things with this, and this time I was just curious, because we've all been stuck at home and stuff like that. So storage and containment of the beast has really been big on my mind. So I said to him, look, I want to do something very small and very different this time. I want to set limitations. So I got 6 of this sprue and 3 of the 4 of the floor sprues. Okay. I said, that's it. Just that amount, not too much, just a what would be less than a pack, I would imagine. Okay. And then I sat with that and copious amounts of cups of tea and perhaps 1 or 2 beers. And I sat and I worked out what could I do with it. And this is a love tribute to all of the Infinity dudes out there, especially my buddy Carlos Bostria. Okay? Because Carlos Bostria came up with an idea that has circulated throughout the Infinity world. Okay? Of
the nesting stacking
terrain. So what it is, like nesting dolls free. So it's like a big building,
right,
and a middle-sized building and a small building, and you can basically stack them up on top of each other, or you can lay them out. But when you're not using them, one fits inside the next.
Clever.
So I thought to myself, "Oh hell yeah!" But surely 6 sprues and wouldn't be enough to do that. It only bloody was.
That's great.
So I set off and I did it. So this is my lower building, and that middle wall. So all of this stuff you can plug in and out. Okay. I like to work in sub-assemblies, so I don't like keeping it too modular. I prefer to have sub-assemblies that I can quickly throw out the table, but I did keep that middle wall separate. Okay. So I could plug it in and out, the one that's on the inside.
Because you can use magnets as well for this.
You can use magnets, yeah. So you either use magnets or the little plastic pegs that are in it. Now, bear in mind, this isn't finished, and it's just using a prototype kit, okay? I put together the first floor, okay? Now, you'll see the little 4 dot things on top of the pillars.
Yes.
Okay? I glued them to the top of the pillars rather than to the edge of the floor. So if I wanted to, I could actually just flip that floor over and have it as almost like a concrete pad on the ground or whatever. Okay. Yeah. They make more sense in my book being glued to the top of the pillars than they do to the floors. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then pop. That's it on. That's building number 1. Okay. Then did building number 2. Okay. And the beauty of that one was that floor piece, that one floor piece was all I needed for building number 2. It was big enough as it was. So after building number 2, I popped the floor on, did building number 3, and then I started to experiment with the layouts of it. So that you can do your 3 stack thing there. You could just put some ladders or whatever in. There's other bits coming to dress up the edges and stuff like that, but they're just not manufactured yet. Okay. But I also had leftover pieces, and I had enough leftover pieces to do overhang, or I did it as a kind of like a bridge. Yeah. And I still had more, as you can see in the background there. So ultimately, when I used almost everything, but I didn't use everything, almost everything gave me like a
fairly substantial building.
A fairly big slap of a building. Yeah. And the beauty of it is, when I was finished with it, Jerry, it all fit inside the big building. It all nested inside the big building. So I was able to just take it apart, nest inside the big building, and then I only had something of that size to pack away.
What size are the squares? If by, can you show us the roof again?
The roof?
Yeah, because that's probably the easiest one to, if you go, yeah. So what size is that sort of square roof, roughly?
About that size.
Right. so is that...
What the size of a head?
Is that like 3 inches then?
More space to scale.
Hang on,
Jerry.
I measure my head.
It's more. Of course, now you get me. Like all the
curious
lying around my table. The one thing that's not here.
It may well be on the Kickstarter. I'll scroll on the Kickstarter actually if you don't know.
Oh, there you go. It's found it now, Jerry. Went in.
There's a pencil. Okay.
Okay.
I would say, Jerry, it's about.
I mean, that must be about 6. That must be about 6 inches then, because a pencil's around 6 inches.
Yeah, it's about 5 inches, 5-6 inches. Yeah. Nice. You get a 5-inch square.
Yeah.
Then you get a 5 by say 2 and a bit.
2 and a bit. Yeah.
And then you get a 2 and a bit by a 2 and a bit, and a 2 and a bit and a 2 by a 2 and a bit. Okay.
No, and then just thinking dead zone, because it's all on 3-inch squares. So if that can't be far off that.
Oh, it's not far off that.
And the fact that it's squarely modular means you could quite happily just, you don't need to fit within it. Yeah.
And I prefer this because it's sturdier, this stuff, when you work with it. It's sturdier, it's less gappy. Yeah. You know, a lot of the other train kits and stuff out there, you know, when you put them together,
measurements, sorry.
They leave gaps and stuff. Have you found the measurements? Have you?
Well, I found the measurements for one part, which is 62 mil tall walls. So about
you do a quick.
So about 2.5 inches then for the height.
Yes. Yeah, because the floors are just slightly smaller than the walls.
Yeah,
just slightly.
Bunch of men estimating length. What have we come to?
So it's about that big. So 10, 12 inches. You tell me. Good.
But look, you know, it's another really lovely execution of this terrain. The minis and all are great, you know, but it's look,
they're about as static as an elf sniper.
Yes, you know, it's like I'm becoming almost miniature blind these days. You know, so the innovation for me is
the terrain.
The terrain. You know, it's like I love seeing what those guys can do with coming up with how you can construct terrain, and it's and again, you know, I will admit that post-apocalyptic isn't particularly my thing either outside of Star Wars. But then I started to think, well, hang on a second. What are you thinking, Warren? You're being silly here, because Star Wars is basically post-apocalyptic in the desert. Well, it depends where you are. It's post-apocalyptic anywhere. Stargrave could equally be the same.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there was suddenly, whenever I started to think about it, I thought to myself, it doesn't. It's not just 40K. I said, I'm not vibing for that at the moment. But for something like Rangers of Shadow Deep in space, I could totally go down this route. I think this would work exceptionally well.
No, definitely. Yeah, I'm with you. And like you say, for things like Rangers, Stargrave, Star Wars, where it doesn't matter what world you're on.
Yes,
because anything will fit, because you could just be on a industrialized world or on a
Jerry, I want the Aztec stuff.
The Aztec is.
I never got the Aztec stuff. If I could get the Aztec stuff and some of that cobalt, imagine the Star Wars planet you could do. If you scroll down a wee bit, you see that small render image there. If you keep going down, there's a bigger version of that, right? This is worth pointing out, right? Because this is where this kit's headed. Do you notice around the edges they have a trim now, so you don't see? Yeah, it hides all the wee holes and stuff. But they're also introducing bridges. So bridges are now becoming a dedicated thing, and the ladders and the stairs and steps and stuff, and vehicle ramps as well.
It really ties it together. Just looking at what you did with yours, just adding a little bridge in there when you was doing it across, it just completely ties it together. And hard for that as well. Hard plastic's usually quite expensive in terms of terrain. That's quite reasonable. This isn't
too bad. Yeah, this is reasonable. And the great thing about this, Free, is you could pick this up as a little side hobby. Do you know what I mean? You buy a bit. It's always there. It's always in circulation. My problem with, for example, the Cities of Death stuff is it would come out with a great big box of Cities of Death, but then after about a week, it's no longer available. And you can't really keep adding to it as a continuous little build out of your world. Whereas with the likes of this, you just get stuck in, pick up a box, then go back, get another box, get another one, and you're just constantly building it out. And I want to do that to the Aztec stuff. I want a mix of the Aztec and the Cobalt, specifically to do a kind of like a hidden rebel base. Kind of a thing. I think that would be...
Never set your rebel base up inside a Sith tomb. I'm just saying.
Well, there's 11 days left on that.
Revenue will come for you. Yeah.
So they've had a load of Kickstarters. No, they've delivered. Their dungeon stuff is amazing. If you haven't seen it in the Dungeons and Lasers,
their dragons are out in the wild now.
Their dragons are out in the wild. Like they are on fire. They are absolutely on fire. All guns blazing. I'm looking forward to sitting down with Michael next week and having a deep dive on this stuff. And that is me.
And relax. If you fancy relaxing some more, come and join us on Sunday morning, where we do all the relaxing all the time with the XLBS. If you're not a member of the Cult of Games, then you can get a 30-day trial and join us to see what we're talking about, which this week may or may not be whatever Warren was talking about earlier, if he can remember. And if not, it will be something
I took a note of that somewhere.
Equal or greater value. Otherwise, we will see you back here next Friday. And obviously, pencil in Saturday the 22nd for Rorke's Drift. Be there or be a rectangular thing. Until then, bye-bye.
Have an amazing week, dudes.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.